Electricast.
Hey, it's Emma Chamberlain. I designed these new glasses for Warby Parker and I basically can't take them off. Like, I'm showering in them and sleeping in them. They're just that good. Go see them all at warbyparker.com. And you know what? Have a good day too. Okay? All right? Bye.
Hey, it's me, the Quenchies. I'm that late afternoon craving you just can't shake. Wait, what's that? Welch's Grape Aid? No! Made with real fruit and no added sugar, nothing answers the call of the Quenchies like Grape Aid. Got the Quenchies? Grab a Grape Aid in your juice aisle.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Hey, before we get into this episode, I just wanted to let you know that you can now grab my album of guided meditations. It's called Sourced by Spirit, and it's on all streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, YouTube Music, and many more. There's 11 guided meditations ranging from 4 minutes through to 10 minutes to help you reset your mind and your body at any time. Okay, now let's get on with the show. Dr. Cali Estes, the addictions coach, is a highly sought after addiction professional, life coach, recovery coach, performance coach, and wellness guru that blends talk therapy with positive change to assist her clients in unlocking their true potential. She's been featured in books, magazines, radio, and television for her work in the drug addiction and transformational coaching fields. She's a 5-time #1 best-selling author, founder of the largest addiction and mental health education school online, founder of Sober on Demand, and host of the wildly popular UnPause Your Life podcast. I've spoken to so many addiction specialists over the years on this show, and what sets Cali apart is that what she does works. So I hope you find our conversation useful if you're tackling an addiction you're trying to shake. Welcome, Cali, to the Ethical Evolution.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, I've been looking forward to chatting to you for quite a while, but for those people who haven't heard of you and don't know who you are, can you go ahead and tell us?
Sure. I'm Dr. Cali Estes. I'm the founder and CEO of Sober on Demand, the Addictions Academy, and author of now to be 6 books. My next one's coming out hopefully next week. The editor's slowly inching us towards the deadline. So that's what I do. And I work with high-profile clients. I help them get sober and stay sober. And then I've also created a university to help people to learn to do what I do. Mm-hmm. So become a recovery coach, an interventionist, sober companion, so they can help. Because what we need are more trained helpers because we don't have enough people out there. So that's what I do.
Now, you wouldn't guide people if you hadn't been through the fire yourself. So tell us about your story and, how you got to where you are.
So I never knew I had an addiction. I didn't grow up in a family with addiction. There was mental health, but no addiction. And I'm in college. And if you can imagine, I'm living with 4 girls and we all go to ladies' night. Thursday night, lady night, drinks are $1. And I would always come home alone. And they would always have boyfriends and go out to after parties. And the one night I'm at home and I'm sitting on the floor and I'm eating cake with my hands, literally like this, and crying. And there's cake on me. It's on the wall. It's on the door. It's on the dog. And my roommate walks in and she goes, dude, something's not right with you. And I just kind of went, but this is normal. And she's like, this isn't normal. So I went to the counselor. and she opened up the DSM, which is how we diagnose, problems. And she says, well, you're not bulimic because you're not throwing up, and you're not restricting because you're eating too much food. So you're not anorexic. So you must just be fat, and sent me to the fat doctor. And back then, fen-phen was the thing. So he goes, yep, you're 30 pounds overweight. Here's fen-phen. Off you go. So now I'm taking fen-phen. I lose 30 pounds, and I'm still eating the cake, the pizza, the candy, binge eating, and I'm losing weight. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, right? So this goes on for a year or two, and then they pull fen-phen off the market. Now I'm in full-blown withdrawal. So I'm looking for the next thing. So I'm looking for diet pills, which quickly led me to street speed. Now I'm doing speed to keep up with the weight loss so that I can eat the way I want. And all of a sudden I end up in the ER. And the first doctor says to me, you're having mild cardiorhythms. There's something wrong with your heart. Of course, I'm like, you're 23. Yeah, what do you know, right? Yeah. And he says, what are you taking? And like every good addict, nothing. Not taking anything. I played stupid. Well, 6 months later, same symptoms, different doctor, different hospital, different part of the world, same synopsis. But this doctor dropped the F-bomb. And when he dropped the F-bomb, he got my attention. And I went, oh, okay, this might be for real. So I thought, okay, something's wrong. So he sends me to OA and NA. He gives me these pamphlets. And I go to Overeaters Anonymous, and I didn't like that. They didn't have any food. They didn't have any drinks. But NA had sugar, and caffeine, and cigarettes, the things I like. So now I could use my things there. So a friend of mine is watching me spiral out of control, and she was just getting sober for alcohol. And she went gangbusters. She owns a big massage company, and she travels all over the world. And she's like, let's go to yoga class. And of course, I'm like, yoga? I can't touch my toes. She goes, just go. So I went. I'm complaining for an hour and a half. This hurts. This is stupid. And the instructor says to me, if you let me help you, I'll get you sober. I'm like, I'm not an addict. He goes, that's okay. You don't have to be an addict. Just let me show you. And he showed me how to manage my emotions on a yoga mat. And I started to figure it out. Fast forward 6 months later, I'm sitting in an addiction class, which is required for my psych degree at Penn State. And they're talking about addiction. Like, these are the addiction markers. And I'm going, that's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. Like, oh my, these are my people. So I started to identify as an addict. And I said, I'm these people. And no one in my family knew what to do with me because none of them had an addiction. And I was like, well, how's that possible? Because it says it runs in families. Well, in my family, there was none, but there was. I found out later, my uncle was an alcoholic after he passed away. But, you don't talk about those things. Yeah. So that's how I got here. I never set out to do addiction work. I was going to be an FBI agent. And then I started to resonate with it and did my internship at a prison. And my mentor taught me body language. And I got real good at it. And the better I got at it, I thought, well, this must be my calling. This is why I'm here. Kind of went through the fire, came out the other side. So I've been doing that ever since.
That's incredible. Like, wow, there's so much to unpack in that. Now, you through all of that, you almost died, right? You got to such a point where you almost died. One of the things I love to ask people who've gotten that close to the edge, particularly through addiction or habits, when they've recovered and are actually growing and thriving, what is it that you're living for now, and what is on your bucket list?
So I've had a bucket list since I was 14, and every time I crossed something off, I had something new. So strange enough, Australia and Europe are on my bucket list because I'm a big travel person. I had wanted to write a book. I'm on number 6. So this might be my last one for a while. I love helping people. I love it. I love what I do. I love teaching. I love watching other people teach. And I love just watching the community grow. When you have somebody who says to you, I couldn't afford your services. I couldn't afford to go to rehab, but I saw you on a YouTube channel, or I heard you on a podcast, and you just said this one thing. Yeah. And I went, that's all I have to do. And it clicked. And then I did the next thing you said. And then they call me and they're like, I've got 5 years sober. And I don't know who you are, but awesome. Let's celebrate. Yeah. That gives me chills. I love it.
And that's a bit of a barrier, isn't it? Like, well, there's two things there. One, a lot of people who recover, they go and they perform acts of service. So they're a service to others. That's a common theme that we see. But there's also, those people who are trying to recover, the expense and the barrier, sometimes that is what stops them from getting clean, right?
It is. So you asked me what's next. So within the next 3 months, we're like halfway in the process of uploading this. We're creating a very, very, very cost-effective coaching series. It's like $5 US a month, which is the cost of a Starbucks.
Yeah.
And you get access to all the videos, and it's going to be everything from sugar addiction to porn addiction to drugs to alcohol. What do I do if my loved one has an addiction? Who do I call? How do I handle this? And it's experts from all around the world that are going to be pitching in and just putting a video or two up there as a cheap way to help more people that can't, maybe you can't afford therapy or you can't get to the therapist because you're busy taking care of someone else and you don't have that kind of time. But you can put, your earbuds in while you're going to and from work and listen to a 30-minute video or a 30-minute audio on how to fix something in your life. So we have that coming out. And that's, I think, going to be pretty helpful to people that need the help but don't have the ways and means to get that good quality help.
That is such a game changer. I love that. It's basically like a library that people can tap into whenever they want. And like you said before, it just takes someone to say the right thing at the right time for something to snap in your brain and you go, you know what, it's time for me to change.
Yep. And when I teach, I tell everybody you're going to go sugar-free for the 48 hours that we're having this class.
Yeah.
And a lot of people stop and go, you want me to do what? Sugar-free, no sugar. And if they're like, well, I'm sugar-free, I'll say no caffeine. And they'll go, what? No caffeine? just 2 days. And it's so interesting because the people that make it the 2 days go, well, I did 2 days. I bet I could do 3. And then they do a week and then they call me and they're like, I'm sugar-free, I'm caffeine-free, I have all this energy, I feel amazing. And they're like, all you said to us was just go 48 hours. And I kept saying to myself, just go 48 more. So it's neat to even see that, just a little change, like a health change from some of my students is pretty awesome.
Now, I guess one of the things you're alluding to there through our conversation is sugar a gateway drug?
I absolutely think it is. Absolutely. Because sugar is everywhere and it's in everything. And if you think about it, Coca-Cola sort of kicked us off with this. If you're driving down the street and you see the billboard and it's just a Coca-Cola and it says thirsty, ? Nothing else. Your brain goes, you're driving down the road, you're not thirsty. And you go, thirsty. You know what? I'm thirsty. But you may not stop today. But tomorrow you're driving down the road and you don't see the billboard and you go, I'm thirsty. And your brain sends back that picture of the Coca-Cola. You stop and buy a Coca-Cola. And you don't even think about it. And next thing you know, that sugar creates the need for more sugar. And sugar and heroin are almost the same chemical makeup. So when you detox, you have the shakes, you have the headache, you have the brain fog, you have the nausea, you have the, all the issues you have with heroin, not as, intense, but you have them. And then people say, why do I feel so bad? Well, sugar is almost like heroin.
That is incredible. And there's a whole psychology there also behind, advertising as well, and what it does to our brain and like even the colors, like we can see that in our head, what you've just said. You can see the big bright red sign, which we know is Coca-Cola, and it gets stuck in your brain and you're like, yep, I wasn't even thirsty and now I am, but you're really not. It's
right.
The sugar.
And when you see sign like Dunkin' Donuts, I don't know if you have that over there, or Starbucks.
Yep.
And you think, ooh, coffee. But you walk in, and remember, we eat with our eyes. You don't see the coffee. You see rows and rows of donuts. And if you're in Starbucks, it's this big billboard, and it's all the sugar drinks.
Yeah.
And somebody did a TikTok, and it was how much sugar is in a pumpkin spiced Frappuccino in Dunkin' Donuts, a large.
Yeah.
And it was 12 donuts worth of sugar in one drink. And I sat back and I went, oh my God, that's like 200, 300, 400 grams of sugar. The average daily intake should be 16. And this is with one drink.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have seen the TikToks where they're behind the scenes making those drinks and they're just pumping that syrup in there, which is sugar loaded. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how people can drink it, honestly. That stuff is nasty.
It's crazy. I'm always so afraid I'm going to get sued by one of these companies because I'm always like, don't drink that. It's so bad for you. And everyone's like, one of these days, Starbucks is going to slap you with a lawsuit because I'm like, that's not coffee anymore. It's like it went from coffee to some, dessert beverage that you're drinking as a morning coffee. And it's just not anymore.
Yeah, I found that when I went to the States, I was like, how do you just get a normal coffee around here? Like, it's very weird.
Yeah.
Now, getting the sugar out of your system as a first step to recovery, obviously when we've been, I don't know, on whatever our drug is, whatever we like to rely on, we're going to have a whole world of inflammation going on in our body. And if we back that up with sugar, it's just going to make it worse, isn't it?
It is. But what happens is sugar increases dopamine. Dopamine is the happy chemical. So if you're coming off of alcohol or drugs, if your body's homeostasis is here, your dopamine plummets. And you want that quick pick me up. So what's the quickest thing you can legally have? A Snickers bar, a donut. And it just pops you up just enough that you have just enough to feel normal, quote unquote. And that's the problem, because then every time your body dips down, you go, I need that Snickers bar. I need those Skittles. I need those M&Ms. I need that donut. And then you keep yourself so sugar and inundated that you never truly detox. And then what happens if you try to come off sugar, people say, well, I came off crack. I came off heroin. I'm not coming off sugar. And I always say, well, wait a minute. If you don't come off sugar, you're going to start craving the other drugs again eventually when your dopamine dips, because it will on sugar. And then that intense craving for cocaine all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and people go, I don't know what happened. I just got this weird craving. And then I'll say, your sugar dropped. And they're like, what? And it's all related. So if I can get a client to come off of sugar when they come off of everything, alcohol and other drugs, sure, it's tough. Sure, it's uncomfortable. But give them 3 weeks later, they feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
And they say, wow, I don't want anything. My brain is starting to work. I don't feel foggy. I feel good. And then they're shocked. They're like, wow, I didn't think I would feel this good.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love that you've mentioned dopamine there, because that's all part of this addiction cycle, isn't it? Like, and it's one of those things that, it layers upon itself. Like, there's no going back to square one. It's like it builds upon itself. So your tolerance gets higher and higher. Do you want to just take us through how that works from an addiction cycle? So say cocaine was your drug and you find you could have more and more and more of it. And then once you go off it, it's not a matter of going back to a small amount, is it?
So cocaine is interesting. Once you do cocaine for the first time, you'll never get as high as you do the first time. So people are always chasing that first high and they're always trying to get back to it and they never can. And that's because your brain never had it. And all of a sudden your brain goes, wow, this is amazing, right? So you're always looking for that. But when it comes to heroin specifically or opiates, your body physically gets addicted to it. And heroin and opiates change your neural pathways in your brain. Other drugs don't do it as much. So think of it this way. If you're sleepwalking and you get up in the middle of the night, let's say you open the fridge and eat something you don't want to. And you say, you know what? I get up every morning at 2 a.m. and I open this fridge and I have, I don't know, a yogurt, whatever. And you want to break the habit. The first thing I tell my clients is to put a piece of furniture in the middle of the room, move it. Because what happens is when you wake up, you're going to bump into the furniture and go, oh my God, I forgot that was there, right? But after day 3, day 4, day 5, you walk around the furniture. Now you have to have an actual, way around it. There's a change. After a while, you learn that path. You learn the new path without bumping into the furniture. That's what your brain does on certain drugs. It creates a new neural pathway or a workaround. And what happens is when you stop doing certain drugs, that workaround kind of falls flat. And your brain goes, well, I don't know where to go now because the furniture was here. It's like all of a sudden you take the furniture totally out of the room and you have this big open space. In the beginning, you're still going to walk around it like it was there because your brain is going, oh, it's still there. And then eventually your brain goes, well, it's not there. Now what do I do? Do I walk straight? Do I walk around it? I'm a little confused. What do I do? That's what's happening when you do drugs for long periods of time. And then you build up this tolerance where your brain goes, well, I could just keep doing more of something to hit that next level. And that creates a whole new neural pathway. And then when you stop, the brain is on a whole different level of dopamine that it needs just to feel normal. So we see the same thing with everything: cocaine, sugar, heroin, Xanax, alcohol. It starts with maybe one glass of wine, and then it's two, and then it's three, and then it's a bottle of wine. And then you're like, well, I'm too drunk, so I'll do a line of cocaine. Okay, now I came down a little bit, now I can have more wine. So it's this up and down balance. And what happens is your brain will always want more. Doesn't matter what it is, it wants more. Your body goes, wait a minute. We've had 3 glasses of wine, 2 lines of cocaine, and 6 donuts. I need a break. I need to tap out. But your mind is going, we're going to party like a rock star. And then eventually, that's why you see people die in their early 50s. Their body just goes, I can't. I can't keep up with this lifestyle. But their brain is going, we can, because we always have. And that's sort of what happens.
So how do you help people stop that cycle and not ever go back to it?
So I start off telling them this: let's not quit forever. Let's just quit for 30 days. Because it helps them break it apart from, oh my God, I can never have that, to I can do that for 30 days. It's like a diet, right?
Yeah.
You've been on a diet for 30 days, you can do it. And then about 15 days in, they start to feel better physically. And we start talking about how good they feel and how good their skin looks and how they're losing weight, because they always lose weight or they gain weight depending on their drug of choice, how amazing they feel. And people start to notice and they say, wow, you look good. You look happy. They start getting praise. And now by day 30, they go, I don't think I want to do that anymore because I feel better. I look better. I'm getting better compliments. And then I go, wow, what a great decision. I don't even have to fight them.
Yeah.
They've decided they want this now because they've seen how it works. So I just ask for a 30-day commitment. And then I always say, day 31, you want to go back? Go back. And they go, oh, okay. Well, then it's my choice, not Cali's choice.
Yep.
And that's when things change, because now they're in control.
I've had guests on this show who've been into rehab about 12 times or more. How do you think there's people who just can't recover from these demons?
No. And rehab has a 95% fail rate because they treat the problem, not the person. So I always tell everybody, alcohol, drugs are not your problem. It's your solution to a problem. Let's get to your problem. Because in rehab, they don't treat your problem. They talk about the alcohol, the drugs, your bad behavior, all these things you have to change, but they never figure out why. The first thing I ask my clients is, why do you use drugs and alcohol? And they all go, I don't know. Beautiful. We're going to find out why. And when we find out why, we're going to fix it. When we fix the why, you don't want any of that, because now you don't need it to cope. You don't need it because you're bored, because we've got a bucket list and we're traveling and we're doing things. We're opening nonprofits and we're busy. We don't have time for shenanigans if we're excited. So I treat it completely different than a rehab. And I get a lot of serial failed rehab attempts.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of clients that have done 8 times, 9 times, and they come to me and they're like, I don't know what else to do. I hope this works. And I go, it will.
That's
and
incredible.
They say, well, how do you know? Like, because you're going to give me a buy-in. And when you give me a buy-in, I know 30 days from now, you're not going to want to use it again. Now, I don't tell them all that. I let them come to that on their own. And then they're like, this is awesome.
I love that.
It's very different.
Yeah. And it's really getting to the root cause of the problem, isn't it? Like not just looking at the surface level, because, and it's the same with, like if you're trying to lose weight, you've got to start an inner transformation before you get an outer one. So really getting into people's psyche and what's actually getting them to use whatever drug of choice it is, that's really the key to it, isn't it? Because they're trying to numb something, they're trying to soothe something, and it's really getting to the bottom of that, isn't it?
It is. And there's 2 different kinds of people. You have the person who is avoiding something. So they're numbing out, and they generally gravitate towards alcohol, opiates, Xanax, benzos, all of the marijuanas, sort of the fuzzy drugs, if you will. And then you have people that are bored or trying to manage their life. They want more. They want that boost. Those are your speed users, your methamphetamine users, your cocaine users, your party people. Sometimes they collide, and you get the person who's like, I just want more. I don't care what it is. If it alters me, I want more. And those are your hardest cases, because they're always looking for the next dopamine hit. And when we do, I have a chemistry test that they'll take, and we can see that their dopamine is so low that they're using every chemical they can to get it up, but it's not staying up naturally. So then we start looking at ways to naturally boost their dopamine. And when we do that, and that's a longer process, but when we do that 6 months down the road, they don't want anything because they have enough happy chemical. They don't need an external chemical.
And you can always repair those dopamine pathways, can't you?
You can. It takes time. And you're not getting the immediate impulse, I need it right now. You have to be able to be patient and let your body heal itself, and it will. Your body will bring everything back to homeostasis, but you have to stay out of its way to do that. A lot of people want it fixed tomorrow, and I say, well, you've been using drugs for 11 years. This is not going to fix in 24 hours. It's going to take time for your body to expel all your toxins, get your liver back up and running, get your gallbladder up and running, and get your body feeling good. And when you feel good, it'll start returning back to homeostasis.
Yeah. Now, can you share with us an example of one of your clients' success stories, like how their life has changed after working with you?
Sure. I've got a couple, but this one was kind of one of my favorites. I was at a friend of mine's rock concert. Mike Tramp, he's a singer of White Lion, and he was doing this intimate gathering, and a friend of my late husband's was there. And first time I met her, and she's very open and public about this, so it's very public. She meets me, and we're just talking during the concert, and I didn't get to listen to the concert because she started telling me, she's like, I'm doing cocaine. I just did cocaine in the bathroom, and I don't know how to stop. And I just looked at her. I said, just now? She said, just now. I said, okay, well, let's talk it through. So we're talking. And about an hour later, she goes, I need a beer. I'm like, no, you don't. She goes, well, what do you mean I don't need a beer? I'm like, you don't need a beer. Enjoy the music. And she's sitting there. She's like, okay, I need a line. I'm like, you'll be fine. Sit here, talk to me. So for like 3 hours, I talked to her. And by the end of the night, she thanked me. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, maybe something got through. About a week later, she messages me on Facebook and she says, I want to thank you. I have a week sober.
Wow.
And I went, wow. And then about a month later, she goes, today's my month. I said, awesome. Now, fast forward, it's been 5 years.
Wow.
And every year in her anniversary, he comes to town to play. And if I can, I'll go see her. And she'll put a big thing on her Facebook and she'll say 4 years, 5 years, where we are. So she's so excited. It's her 5th year. September 23rd, it'll be her 5th year. So she's so excited about this. I'm like, that's so awesome. And just from me helping her, she's helped 3 other people get sober. So she's got a success story. And I'm like, that's so awesome. And she's like, I did it. I helped somebody out of the darkness. And she's like, I have no training. I just remembered you sitting there in my head. And I'm just, repeating what you said. And she goes, it worked. I'm like, well, there you go.
That's incredible.
That's probably my favorite one because I wasn't hired. I wasn't paid. I was just having fun at a concert and just started talking to her and just worked, just clicked.
That's incredible. And I love that ripple effect because, you've helped one person, they've seen the light, they can then share it with other people. So you effectively have helped multiple people with just one conversation.
Yeah. Yep. And I love it. And when people listen to the podcast too, or they listen to a show I was on or me training somebody, and they just get enough information that it clicks. That's the coolest thing to watch because then they get successful and then someone else gets successful. And then I'll get a message, my cousin's aunt's sister's third cousin removed, brother's sister's uncle told me to listen to your podcast and now I'm sober. And I'm like, okay, awesome.
And I know you've dropped in a plug there for your podcast. Do you want to tell us about it?
Oh, so I have, I didn't intentionally do that, but I have a podcast called UnPause Your Life. And it's success stories of people that were, mental health or addiction. There's a couple on there that were in accidents, how they turned their life around and were able to successfully, be successful, but also help other people. So it's a sort of like a lift me up podcast. If you're ever feeling stuck and you want to hear a success story, it's pretty cool.
I love that. And there's so much power in our story, isn't it? And that was really for me, I guess, my first ever podcast that I created. It was almost like my own therapy. And through that, things just skyrocketed. But if we get our story out there, there's so much power in that because people can connect with us, they can relate, and they can see that they're not alone. And no one's going to come at you with pitchforks or anything if you tell your truth, because everybody's got their own demons, right? You let them out, that's the biggest freedom that you can get. And by having those conversations and sharing those stories, you're going to ultimately help someone else.
That's true. And when I was writing my very first book with my late husband, my opening line was about the violence in my childhood. And a lot of people reached out to me when they read the book and said, I had no idea this was happening. And I said, well, that's how I ended up here. I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't go through the things I went through. And I wouldn't be as good at my job if I wasn't, in recovery from speed and diet pills. I wouldn't be good. I wouldn't know what to look for, because I wouldn't have been that person. So I think everybody's story is impactful.
And exactly, I love that. I've actually got a tattoo on my arm that is of a song called Thank You for Making Me Who I Am. And it's really all about the people, the places, the things, and all the things that have happened to us that make us who we are. And it's about the gratitude of that, regardless of how good or bad we perceive them at the time. They all make us who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are afraid to tell their story. And I tell everybody, I'm like, put it out there, because you don't know who's going to hear it and be like, wow, that helped.
Now, tell us about Sober on Demand.
So I developed Sober on Demand. I was working for a treatment center, and I saw this revolving door of clients. And I looked at the model and I said, there's not enough individualized care. So Sober on Demand is individual, one-on-one. We come to the client's home, office, tour bus, Airbnb, wherever they are, and we can get them sober. So we have a nurse and detox team. Or we can keep them sober. If they have an event, they're maybe going to a retreat or a business meeting, or flying across the world, and they want to get on a plane and go, all I'm going to do is drink in first class. I need some help. We go with them, and we help get and keep them sober. But it's not just that. It's also teaching them purpose in life and passion in life, and what do you want to do, and what's your bucket list, and what's your, what mark do you want to leave? What's next, per se? So a lot of treatment centers say, we just get you sober and then kind of push you out into the world. But we not only get you sober, we figure out what your space in the world is. Where do you belong? What do you need to do to stay sober? And then we put those things in place, and we kind of push you in that direction to keep you sober.
I love that. That's such a cool idea. While you were talking, I had a thought, and I'm curious on your opinion around 12-step recovery programs, so like AA.
So I tell everybody, whatever works for you, whatever model you want to work with, we will implement alongside of what we do. It didn't work for me. I had too many triggers there with the sugar and the caffeine and the smokes and all that. So for me personally, it didn't work, but it has some good benefits. There's fellowship, which you need, strong team, and you can tell your story, and you can sponsor people, which makes you feel good. If it's something you don't want to do, that's okay. We don't have to do that. If it's something you want to do, we'll go with you. And I tell everybody, it's like politics. We are completely neutral. We just keep it very neutral. We are on your time, helping you 100%.
Yeah, that's cool. The reason I asked that is I've actually been working on a meditation series that is actually based on the 12 steps, but it's much more, how can I put it, esoteric, I guess. And it's not so, God-based and all that kind of stuff. It's actually looking at the inner side of ourselves rather than, the external. So it's something that I'm working on at the moment, and taking people through a 12-step meditation. So I'll let you know once it's out. Maybe your clients might like it.
Yeah, you have to come on my podcast and talk about it.
I would love to. That would be fantastic. Stay tuned, folks. Now, Cali, I could talk to you about this stuff all day because it absolutely fascinates me. And I am so blown away by the work that you do and the change that you're making in the world. For those people that are listening and say they're going through their own recovery and they could be doing rehab, they could be doing all kinds of stuff. If it's not really working for them and they're really, really trying, what advice would you give them right now to make the change they need?
Pick one small thing. So let's say you're drinking and you're drinking a 6-pack a day and you say, well, I can't quit. Instead of drinking 6, drink 5. Just tell yourself, I'm only going to drink 5 today and drink 5 tomorrow. Then tell yourself, I'm only going to have 4 because you've managed 5. Do 4 for a couple of days. Then do 3. Then see if you can do 2. So small little changes, just do one little thing. You don't have to change everything. Just change something small. So do a little less. Or maybe you're trying to quit smoking. Maybe you're trying to quit sugar. Maybe you're trying to quit cocaine altogether. Think of it as less, not altogether quitting. And don't look at this like, I can never do it again. That's the mistake people make all the time. They say, I can never, ever, ever drink again. And then they panic and they go, I can't live without it. Or I can never do diet pills again or sugar or whatever. Don't think of it that way. Think of it like just a very small break. I'm going to give my body a break. And then if I want to do it down the line, I will. So start changing your mindset on how you view the substance that you're using. And when you start doing that, you'll start to use it less and less and less.
So instead of the radical cold turkey, it's really just working your way down rather than shocking your system.
Yep. So when I do like sugar detox with people, the first thing I say is stop putting sugar in your drinks. That's it.
Yeah.
Have all the other sugar you want. Put it in your pasta sauce, have your cake, your candy, your cookies. Just don't put it in your drink. And you'll be shocked at how quickly you lose 5 pounds. And your mindset goes, I just did that. I just drank an unsweet iced tea for the first time in 20 years. And they're going, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And they do it again. And then they got it. And then I'm like, okay, now just remove one more thing. We remove the next thing. And once they start doing it, they say, I can do this. It's baby steps. You know, if you're drinking and a bar is your trigger, don't go to the bar and sit at the bar and go, I'm going to tough this out. Don't go at all.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of someone like me in early recovery going to the Dunkin' Donuts going, I'm not going to have any donuts. Oh no, I'm going to order 12 and I'm going to eat all 12 in the car. And then I'm going to feel sick. And then I'm going to feel miserable. And then I'm going to go get another 12 because I feel sick and miserable. And then we go down the rabbit hole. So it's about just taking a baby step. And then from the baby step, you can take a bigger step. And if you can do it and do a little bit one at a time, you'll get where you're trying to go.
Do you do any work with people around reassociating how they see or how they feel when they, think about what they're going to consume? So like associating pain or pleasure in a different way. So, like like that donut example, you could be like, well, I don't want to do that anymore because it actually makes me feel sick. So instead of, oh, that's yum, it's like, no, that's actually yuck.
Yeah. So we do a food mood journal with food, and they tie an emotion to every food you have. And this can be done with drugs and alcohol too. So every time you have a feeling, you're reaching for something. And they start to learn, I feel sad, I'm reaching for a glass of wine or a donut, let's say. And then we start to break this sad. Well, if I feel sad, I have to do 50 squats before I can have the donut or the alcohol. And the reason I make them do squats is exercise boosts your dopamine as quick as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So somebody will say, okay, well, if I want that donut, 50 squats, they'll do 25 squats. Now they're out of breath. They're cussing me out in their head, which is totally fine, I tell them. They're not hungry. They're irritated. And they're going, I don't want the effing donut because I just did these squats.
Yep.
And it puts them in a whole new mindset. And then they go, you know what? I'm not even hungry. And I feel good. And then it may last 2 or 3 hours. And then they say, okay, want the donut, do the squats. And they do it again. And they get that big boost of dopamine. And they start to realize that the sad and the happy can't happen at the same time in your brain. Your brain cannot be sad and happy. It cannot be anxious and happy. It's going to be one or the other. So if you have this big boost of dopamine from the squats, it's happy. It can't be anxious. It can't be depressed. And when you're happy, you don't want the donut. You don't want the cocaine because you feel good. So then it's just waiting for your dopamine to come back down again and boosting it back up with exercise. So I tell everybody, I'm the crazy lady in Target. If I'm irritated, I'll do 50 squats down the aisle. And everyone's like, what is she doing? I'm like, you know what? Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm changing my attitude for the benefit of everyone around me. And then they laugh because it makes you feel good.
Yeah, it's a win-win, isn't it? Like that is just so cool.
It is.
Now, Cali, if people want to find out more about you and get in touch with you, where can they go?
So soberondemand.com. They can also go to caliestes.com, unpauseyourlife.com, or theaddictionsacademy.com, and we're everywhere.
And with the library of video stuff that you're about to launch, how far away is that?
I would say effectively Jan 1, we should have everything up and running where we have probably at least 100, 200 videos to go.
Wow.
And we're just going to keep adding to it from people all around the world. So you'll have access to everything we can get our hands on.
I love it. I love it. We'll have to stay in touch and share that. Now, I've got the last big question for you. What's the change you'd like to see in the world and how can we bring it to life?
I wish people were kinder to each other. In the addiction space, people are so cutthroat and so nasty. And there's so many clients to go around. I just wish people would say, you know what? I'm just here to help, that it's not about my ego. It's about helping. And we just don't see enough of that. They want praise and accolades. And I always say, you're not responsible for anyone getting sober. You're just planting a seed. That's it.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see more kindness and less ego.
I couldn't agree more. And I know, as I said to you, I've worked with a lot of specialists previously on the show. And I don't know, some of them see themselves as a bit of a hero. And it's not about them. It's about the people and getting them the help they need. So I know exactly what you mean. It's not that ego doesn't play a part in this at all.
Mm-hmm. When you ask me about AA and NA, that's the one thing I don't like is that you're going to do what I say. And I'm always like, well, wait a minute. What if it doesn't work? And your way may not be the best way. So if we're more kinder to each other and nicer, I think we'll see a better result and the world will be a better place.
Imagine that. Imagine that. And I wish there was more people like you in it, Cali. You have been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for being a part of the Ethical Evolution.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's growing every day with great content and highlights you may not have heard on the podcast. In addition, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, and why not leave a 5-star review? If you're not following me on social media, you can find me at Ethical Change Agency on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and YouTube, and at DJ Bindi on TikTok and Instagram.
Dreaming of the perfect event or longing for a clutter-free space? I'm Stephanie with I'm with Steph, where your vision becomes a reality. From magical weddings to transformative home organizing, we bring you expertise and passion to every project. Whether you're planning a grand celebration or seeking peace through organization, we tailor our services to meet your unique needs. I'm with Steph. To explore our services and connect with me directly, visit imwithsteph.com. Mention Electricast for a 20% discount.
Have you ever wondered what actually happens in Congress every day? Stay informed on Capitol Hill's daily happenings with a concise, factual summary of the Senate and House of Representatives' activities from the previous session, free from bias, on the Congressional Record Daily Digest podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and discover the process from the heart of U.S. politics. The Congressional Record Daily Digest, an Electricast production.
Electricast. Electricast.